Yo, what's going on, guys? And today, of course, we got to talk about this Pacers Grizzlies interest in Cam Johnson. According to Mark Stein of the Stein Line, quote, league sources say that Indiana is a team to watch in the trade pursuit of Brooklyn's Cam Johnson. Memphis is another team frequently mentioned as a likely suitor. Although it remains unclear how eager the Grizzlies are with the Nets in wake of the whole Dorian Finney-Smith thing, it seems like those could be the two front runners for Cam Johnson if he were to be traded. We do know that they are asking for multiple first round picks allegedly. Now, these are the two packages I floated that we're going to break down for you guys. The Nets would get either Obi Toppin or Aaron Nesmith package with the injured Isaiah Jackson, who they can either just let walk at free agency, or they could go ahead and re-sign him cheap and hope that he fulfills his potential. The other one is Luke Kennard and John Conchar with the Memphis 2026 first round pick. So we'll get right into both of those. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts. What do you guys think? Cam Johnson is having a great campaign this year. He's averaging 19.5 points, just under 5 rebounds, 3 assists, almost 50% from the field, 43% from 3. And he's probably the most sought after trade target in the league. His ability to score from anywhere on the floor. He's a combo forward. His versatility on defense and just his positionlessness has made him a asset for playoff teams to monitor basically. And the Indiana Pacers and Memphis Grizzlies are two playoff teams that are hoping to take that next step to being a contender. For the Brooklyn Nets, trading Cam Johnson offers a chance to secure young talent, cap flexibility, and draft capital for their ongoing rebuild. So what we're going to do right here is put on the screen the Indiana Pacers, the first trade, which we'll talk about. As I said before, it is this one right here. The team fit, Rick Carlisle is the head coach, and he's a coach that prioritizes the offensive spacing, especially with the guard-centric playmaking. They have, obviously, Tyrese Haliburton, Benedict Mathurin are two big names that people obviously think of when you're there. Also, Andrew Nembhard. I know he dealt with some injuries this year, but still, he's a guy who's part of that rotation. So for them, bringing to a guy like Cam Johnson, he would really help give them some more size. And Benedict Mathurin has been playing well this season, at times off the bench, not as well as his rookie year, but I think he's showing growth. Tyrese Haliburton, Andrew Nembhard, Ben Shepherd. I think adding Johnson would address the Pacers' need for more size and a defensive improvement on the perimeter, where they currently allow opponents to shoot 37.6% from 3, which is the third worst in the NBA. And Johnson would immediately slot into the starting lineup alongside Pascal, Siakam, Miles Turner, who Miles Turner is averaging almost 20 points and 8 rebounds, and Tyrese Haliburton, who's averaging 17 points and 6 assists, to make this really powerful offensive team and hopefully also improve their defensive ability. Yeah, I know he's not an elite defender, but he can guard multiple positions at almost 6'10". Plus, with Miles Turner being an insurance policy as well as Pascal Siakam, I think it'll improve Indiana's defensive ranking of 29th in opponent blocks per game. The Pacers have a $554,000 in cap space under the luxury tax, which would enable them to absorb some contract space, which would be $19.5 million salary without minimal roster disruption. They could either send Obi Toppin or Aaron Nesmith and Isaiah Jackson along with a future first round pick to Brooklyn for this trade. They could even argue that Obi Toppin or Aaron Nesmith is the equivalent to one first round pick or multiple first round picks, as I think this trade would Obi Toppin or Aaron Nesmith, one of those guys would have to go because Cam Johnson's taking their spot. So this trade would keep the Pacers competitive while providing Brooklyn with a young prospect they could keep in Jackson and a starter in either Toppin or Nesmith that they could eventually trade or keep, some cap relief. Now let's move over to the next one, which I would say it'd have to be the Memphis Grizzlies. And we know that they're shopping Luke Kennard and John Conchar, but under Taylor Jenkins, Memphis emphasizes obviously that two-way grit on defense and taking advantage of the transition offense. And Johnson being a 43.6% three-point shooter would fit nicely with Desmond Bane to help space the floor along Jaren Jackson Jr., who both of them, Desmond Bane, 17 points per game, Jaren Jackson Jr., are both really good shooters. Bane, obviously one of the best ones in the league, and Jaren Jackson Jr., one of the best ones at his position. And John Morant's become a good shooter, but even then, it'll allow them to space the floor better. And this is a team that this top 5 offense of 123 points per game, which 21 of those are coming from John Morant, 8 assists, will allow them to attack the rim more effectively because they won't be able to just sit back and wait for Ja to attack the rim. They're going to have to, that guy who would be sitting when Santi, who would be dropping down whenever Santi or a Brandon Clark or a Jake LaRavia is out there to help mitigate Ja's driving, isn't going to be able to, because Cam's going to allow them to take advantage of that. Also, he never turns the ball over. So this team is the 10th worst turnover rate team with 17.5 a game. I think it's going to help them. Plus, he's going to fit in as more than likely a starter in between Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane. You'd assume that this deal, and Marcus Smart would stay. A lot of people are thinking Marcus Smart's going to be traded, but you can actually do this deal without having to trade Marcus Smart from the salary cap ramifications. Also, Jaren Jackson Jr. is averaging 23 points a night almost, and they're $4.2 million under the luxury tax, which would allow them to package Luke Kennard and John Conchar, which is like $15 million, and along with a 2026 first round pick for Johnson. Despite their strained relations over the Dorian Finney-Smith trade, I think this deal benefits both sides. The Nets get a young player in John Conchar who's under a cheap contract and a pick, and then Luke Kennard they can flip or just buy out. And if they really want to take somebody else, they could see if Gigi Jackson or Jake LaRavia or Santi Aldama might be available. And look, their prior trade tensions over Dorian Finney-Smith might complicate those negotiations. Now, for Brooklyn under Jordi Fernandez, they're focusing on the rebuild, and I think the Nets are aiming to acquire assets and cap flexibility. Trading Johnson obviously would be because Brooklyn wants to maximize his trade value as he is at a peak value, because he's shooting a career high 67% and has been impacting the game on both ends of the floor. The Nets are the worst rebounding team in the league, worst rim protecting team in the league. And getting Isaiah Jackson, if he stays next year, that's going to help them out and also allow them to move off of Nick Claxton in the future. Luke Kennard being expiring gives them, a cap flexibility. And the Nets obviously would allow them to give their young guys playing time, as the minutes and production Johnson leaves would allow the younger guys to get that. So for me, I think Cam Johnson's trade value lies in his elite shooting and defensive versatility. And for Indiana, he bolsters their championship aspirations with spacing and experience, as he was on the championship team that lost in the finals for the Phoenix Suns. And Memphis would gain a reliable two-way guy to also help them enhance their title contending core. Meanwhile, I think Brooklyn would capitalize on Johnson's strong market, demand a stockpile of assets to help fuel their rebuild. And I think ultimately the Pacers and the Grizzlies obviously got to weigh Johnson's immediate impact against the cost of parting with young talent or a good player and draft picks, with Indiana potentially being better suited to meet Brooklyn's demand due to their cap flexibility and roster needs, as I think they have more a luxury of players, while the Grizzlies, outside of their core guys, I don't know if their back guys entice, as you would think. So that's it. That's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe.